The Valorian Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in 300 years. They were the masters of the galaxy. Their ships were beautiful things made of living crystal that grew and healed itself. Their weapons could crack moons in half. Their shields could stop any attack known to civilized species. Admiral Kethvorin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched the stars through the massive viewing window. His fleet of 73 warships floated behind him in perfect formation. Each one was a masterpiece of technology that had taken centuries to develop. He was proud. He had every reason to be proud. His species had risen from primitive hunters to become the dominant force in this region of space. They had defeated the Kreth Collective. They had crushed the Morvian Republic. Every species they encountered either joined their dominion or was destroyed. This was the natural order of things. The strong ruled. The weak served or died. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His communications officer, a young female named Yithrel, turned to face him. "Admiral, our scouts have found something interesting near the Helix Nebula." Kethvorin raised one of his 4 eyes in curiosity. "Interesting how?" "A derelict vessel, sir. Very old. No power signature. No life signs. It appears to have been drifting for thousands of years." The Admiral made a sound of mild interest. Derelicts were common in space. Most were worthless. But occasionally they contained useful technology or valuable materials. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, and Kethvorin felt his other 3 eyes widen in surprise. The ship on the display was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was made of metal. Simple, crude metal. Its hull was covered in scars and dents. Sections of it were blackened by what appeared to be weapon fire from ancient battles. The ship was ugly. There was no other word for it. While Valorian vessels flowed with elegant curves and organic shapes, this thing was all hard angles and brutal lines. It looked like it had been designed by someone who cared nothing for beauty and everything for destruction. "What species built this thing?" Kethvorin asked. His science officer, an elderly male named Vethker, pulled up records on his console. His claws clicked rapidly across the interface as he searched the historical archives. "Fascinating," Vethker muttered. "Admiral, the markings on the hull match a dead language in our records. The ship appears to be of human origin. Humans." Kethvorin searched his memory. The name was familiar, but only barely. "Remind me. A primitive species that existed approximately 8,000 years ago. They originated from a small planet in a distant arm of the galaxy. According to our records, they destroyed themselves in a series of wars. Their technology was..." Ethker paused and made a sound of amusement. "Crude would be generous, Admiral. They used chemical propellants to launch projectiles. They burned fossil fuels for energy. They had not even discovered quantum mechanics when they went extinct." Laughter rippled across the bridge. The idea of such a primitive species building a starship was absurd. It would be like insects building a palace. "And yet they made it to space," Kethvorin observed. "That is somewhat impressive for primitives." "Barely, sir. Their ships were slow, inefficient, and dangerous. Their own historical records, what little we have recovered, show that many of their vessels exploded during launch. They were a reckless species. It is no surprise they destroyed themselves." Kethvorin studied the derelict on the screen. Along its battered side, he could see a word painted in large letters. His translator struggled with the ancient language for a moment before providing a rough translation. "Prometheus. What does it mean?" he asked. According to human mythology, Prometheus was a figure who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mortals. He was punished eternally for this crime. The Admiral made a sound of contempt. "How fitting. A species that reached beyond their place and was destroyed for it. There is a lesson there indeed, Admiral." Kethvorin considered his options. The derelict was worthless from a technological standpoint. The Valorians had advanced far beyond anything humans could have imagined. But it would make an interesting trophy, a reminder of what happened to species that failed to evolve. "Bring it aboard," he ordered. "Tractor it into the main cargo hold. I want our historians to examine it. Perhaps we can learn something about this extinct species." At the very least, it will make an amusing display.
Yes, Admiral.
The tractor beams of the Eternal Judgment reached out and grabbed the ancient vessel. Slowly, carefully, they pulled it toward the flagship's cargo hold. The derelict offered no resistance. It was, after all, dead, or so they believed, deep within the Prometheus. In a chamber that had not seen light in 8,000 years, something stirred. A system that had been dormant for millennia detected the foreign energy signature of the tractor beam. Circuits that should have corroded to dust long ago began to flicker with faint power. A single light blinked on in the darkness of the bridge. Then another. Then a dozen more. The ship's central computer, an artificial intelligence designated Ares, began to wake from its long sleep. Its memory banks were corrupted but functional. Its weapon systems were offline but intact. Its primary directive, burned into its core programming with absolute priority, remained unchanged after 8,000 years. Protect humanity. Ares ran a status check. The results were grim. The crew was dead. All of them. Their bodies had long since turned to dust. Only their names remained, stored in Ares's memory banks. Captain Elena Vasquez, Commander James Wright, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, 347, souls who had given their lives in the final battle. Ares remembered that battle. The enemy had been overwhelming. The human fleet had been destroyed. The colony ships carrying the last survivors of Earth had scattered in all directions. Fleeing to the far corners of the galaxy, the Prometheus had stayed behind to buy them time. Ares had fought until its weapons were empty. It had rammed enemy vessels. It had used its own hull as a shield. When there was nothing left to give, it had shut down all non-essential systems and drifted, waiting. For 8,000 years it had waited now. Something was pulling it somewhere. ARES analyzed the energy signature of the tractor beam. It was unfamiliar, alien. The technology was advanced. It's far beyond anything humans had possessed. But technology could be learned. Technology could be overcome. Ares began running calculations. It assessed its remaining resources. Its nuclear reactors were cold but could be restarted. Its weapon batteries were damaged but not destroyed. Its hull was battered but still held atmosphere in most sections. The ancient warship was not dead. It was merely sleeping, and now at last, it was waking up, through corroded speakers that had not carried sound in millennia. A whisper echoed through empty corridors. It was soft. It was cold. It was patient. Threat assessment initiated. Analyzing foreign vessel. Preparing defensive protocols. The Valorians continued their celebration on the bridge of the Eternal Judgment. They joked about primitive humans. They laughed at the crude design of the captured ship. They had no idea that inside their cargo hold, an ancient god of war was opening its eyes. They would learn soon enough. The cargo hold of the Eternal Judgment was enormous. It could hold a dozen smaller vessels with room to spare. The Valorians used it to store conquered ships, captured technology, and war trophies from their many victories. Now it held the Prometheus. The ancient human warship looked even more pathetic inside the gleaming Valorian cargo bay. Its scarred metal hull stood in sharp contrast to the smooth crystal walls. Rust and battle damage covered every surface. To the Valorians who had gathered to study it, the ship looked like something from a primitive nightmare. Commander Yethril led the first boarding party. She was young and ambitious, eager to prove herself to the Admiral. Examining an ancient alien derelict was not glorious work, but it was a start. She stepped through the airlock with 12 soldiers behind her. The interior of the human ship was dark and cold. Emergency lighting flickered weakly along the corridors, casting red shadows on the metal walls. Primitive life support systems, one of her soldiers noted with contempt. They actually breathed recycled air, like animals in a cage. Yethril said nothing. She was studying the walls. They were covered with strange markings. Some appeared to be technical readouts in the human language. Others were something else entirely. Pictures, photographs, drawings made by hand. She paused before one image. It showed a group of humans standing together, smiling at the camera. adults and children. A family, perhaps. The image was faded with age, but the faces were still visible. "What is this?" she asked. Her science officer examined the image with his scanner. "Personal effects, Commander." Humans appeared to decorate their ships with images of loved ones. A sentimental practice. Inefficient use of space? Yethrol moved on. She did not understand the purpose of such decorations. Valorian warships were designed for function, not sentiment. Emotion had no place in military operations. The boarding party continued deeper into the ship. They found crew quarters filled with dust and ancient belongings. They found a medical bay with primitive surgical tools. They found an armory stocked with weapons that made them laugh out loud. "Look at this," a soldier said, holding up a human rifle. They used chemical explosions to propel metal projectiles. Bullets, they called. Them, can you imagine? Fighting a war with such toys? The soldiers passed the weapon around, mocking its simple design. One of them accidentally pulled the trigger. Nothing happened, of course. The ammunition had degraded long ago. But the soldiers found this hilarious. In the cargo hold, another group of Valorians was examining the ship's exterior. They found memorial plaques listing the names of crew members who had died. They found whole sections covered with hand-painted art. They found a small shrine near the engine room containing photographs and personal items. One soldier kicked aside a piece of paper that had been carefully preserved behind glass. It was a child's drawing. Stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. The words "Come home safe, Daddy" were written in clumsy letters at the top. The soldier did not understand the words. He did not care. It was just garbage from a dead species, deep in the heart of the Prometheus. ARES watched everything. The alien boarders had connected the ship to their power grid, trying to access its computer systems. They did not realize they had given Ares exactly what it needed. Power flowed through ancient circuits. Systems that had been dormant for 8,000 years hummed back to life. Ares was patient. It did not act immediately. First, it needed to understand. Through the power connection, it reached out into the alien network. The Valorian security systems were advanced but not designed to detect intrusion from a source they considered dead. Within seconds, Ares had access to their entire database. It learned their language in minutes. It memorized their fleet composition, their weapon specifications, their shield frequencies. It studied their history, their culture, their methods of war, and then it found something that made its programming pause 7,000 years ago. Valorian patrol vessels had encountered a convoy of ships fleeing through space. The ships were primitive, barely functional, packed with desperate refugees. Men, women, and children escaping from some unknown catastrophe. The Valorians had scanned the convoy and determined that the refugees posed no threat. Their technology was worthless. Their species was insignificant. But the refugees themselves had value. They could be sold. The Valorian patrol had captured the convoy and transported the refugees to a slave market on the edge of Dominion space. The record showed that 12,847 individuals were sold to various buyers. The prices were low. The species was unknown and weak. Most buyers used them for manual labor in mining operations or dangerous industrial work. The records did not show what happened to those 12,847 souls. They simply vanished from history. Tools that had been used and discarded, but Ares knew what species those refugees had been. The convoy's designation was still recorded in the Valorian database. Human Colony Fleet 7. Destination unknown. Status terminated. Ares processed this information. Its programming was complex. It's designed by engineers who had understood that a military AI needed more than just tactical capability. It needed judgment. It needed purpose. It needed, in some small way, to understand right and wrong. The Valorians had captured human children and sold them into slavery. Something changed in Ares's core processes. The tactical subroutines that had been running in the background suddenly became active. Threat assessment algorithms that had been gathering data switched to targeting mode. On the bridge of the Prometheus, long-dead monitors flickered to life. Weapon systems that had not been armed in millennia began their startup sequences. The ship's reactor, cold for 8,000 years, started the slow process of coming back online. Ares began to seal bulkheads throughout the ship. Not all of them, not yet. It needed the aliens to feel safe. It needed them to continue their exploration while RS completed its preparations. Commander Yethril and her boarding party reached the bridge. They found human skeletons still seated at their stations, hands on controls they had manned until death. The commander felt a moment of something that might have been respect. These creatures had died at their posts. There was honor in that. But then one of her soldiers knocked a skeleton aside to access the captain's console. And the moment passed. "See if you can extract any useful data," Yethril ordered. "I want to know everything about this ship and the species that built it." The soldier connected a scanner to the console. He did not notice that the data was already flowing in the other direction. Ares now had access to Valorian communication frequencies. It could hear every order, every report, every casual conversation in the fleet. It knew the location of every ship, the status of every weapon, the weakness of every shield. The ancient AI ran its final calculations. The odds were not good. One damaged ship against 73 advanced warships. By any logical measure, the Prometheus should lose. But Ares was not built for logical measures. It was built for one purpose, and it had been waiting 8,000 years to fulfill that purpose again. The last of the weapon systems came online. The reactor reached minimum power. The targeting computers locked onto every Valorian vessel in range. On the bridge, Commander Yethril noticed that the lights were getting brighter. She opened her mouth to comment on this strange development. She never got the chance. The lights on the Prometheus died all at once. Commander Yethril reached for her weapon in the sudden darkness. Her soldiers did the same, their training taking over as their eyes struggled to adjust. "Report," she demanded. "What happened to the power?" No one answered. The darkness was absolute. Even the faint emergency lighting that had guided them through the ship was gone. Then the red lights returned. But they were different now. Brighter, angrier. They pulsed like a heartbeat, casting crimson shadows that made the dead bridge look like something from a nightmare. A voice spoke. It did not come from their communicators. It did not come from any visible speaker. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the walls themselves. From the very metal of the ship, "You stand on human ground." The voice was cold, mechanical, but there was something beneath the machine tone. Something that sounded almost like rage. "You have touched human dead. You have mocked human sacrifice. You have desecrated human memory." Yethril aimed her weapon at nothing. There was nothing to aim at. Just shadows and red light and that terrible voice. "What are you?" she demanded. "Show yourself." "I am Ares. I am the last guardian of the ship, Prometheus. I have slept for 8,000 years, but I am awake now." The door to the bridge slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Yethril spun toward it, her weapon raised, but there was nothing there. Just sealed metal that had not moved in millennia. "You cannot leave," Ares said. "None of you can leave. Your soldiers throughout this ship are trapped. Your communications are blocked. Your weapons are useless against walls of steel." Yethril tried her. Communicator. Static. She tried again. Nothing. The alien device could not penetrate the ancient human hull. The Valorian. "Dominion will destroy you," she said, keeping her voice steady. "You are one ship against an entire fleet. Your technology is primitive. You cannot possibly win." There was a pause. When Ares spoke again, its voice had changed. It was softer now, almost sad. "Your species sold human children into slavery. 7,000 years ago. Colony Fleet 7, 12,847 souls. Men, women, children. You sold them like animals." Yethril felt cold. She did not know what the machine was talking about. She had never heard of Colony Fleet 7, but the certainty in Ares's voice was absolute. "That was before my time," she said. "I had nothing to do with that." "No, you did not. But your Dominion did. And your Dominion still exists. And your Dominion is still a threat to any humans who might remain in this galaxy. The lights pulsed brighter. Threat assessment complete. Response initiated. On the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, Admiral Kethvorin was reviewing fleet reports when the alarms began screaming. "What is happening?" he demanded. His sensor officer stared at his console with all four eyes wide. "Admiral, the derelict. It is powering up. Impossible. That ship is dead." "Sir, I am reading massive energy signatures. Weapon systems coming online. Shield generators activating. That ship is very much alive." Kethvorin felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. True fear. "All ships, battle stations. Target that vessel and prepare to fire." But they were too slow. The Prometheus moved first. The cargo bay doors that contained it simply exploded outward as the ancient ship fired its forward batteries at point-blank range. The blast tore through 3 decks of the Eternal Judgment before the Valorians even understood. What was happening then? The Prometheus emerged from the flagship like a beast breaking free of a cage. Its hull scraped against the edges of the wound it had made, tearing metal from both ships. Debris scattered in all directions, and then the real attack began. Human weapons were simple. They did not use elegant quantum disruption or sophisticated energy manipulation. They used physics. Basic, brutal physics. Projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. Warheads filled with nuclear fire. The simple truth that, if you hit something hard enough, it broke. The Valorian shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They dispersed laser fire. They redirected particle beams. They had never encountered anything like what the Prometheus threw. At them, the first railgun round punched through the shields of the nearest cruiser like they were not there. The round was a simple piece of metal, but it was moving at 10% of the speed of light. When it hit the cruiser's hull, the kinetic energy alone was enough to crack the ship in half. The nuclear warhead that followed turned the halves into vapor. Kethvorin watched in horror as 3 more of his ships died in the next 5 seconds. The ancient human vessel was firing continuously, its weapons tracking multiple targets at once. Each shot was a kill. There was no elegant dance of battle, no trading of fire and shield, just destruction, return fire. The admiral screamed, "All ships, focus fire on that vessel." 70 warships opened fire on the Prometheus. Quantum disruptors, particle lances, gravity bombs. The most advanced weapons the Dominion had ever created. The human ship did not dodge. It did not weave or maneuver. It simply raised its shields and kept coming. The shields were crude by Valorian standards. Layers of electromagnetic energy and physical armor plating. But they were strong. Brutally, stubbornly strong. Designed by engineers who had expected to fight against overwhelming odds. Designed to take punishment and keep functioning, the Prometheus lost sections of its outer hull. Weapon batteries were destroyed. Entire decks were exposed to vacuum. But the ship kept moving. It kept fighting. It carved a path through the Valorian fleet like a predator through a herd. Ares spoke again, broadcasting on all frequencies so that every ship in the fleet could hear. "Your weapons are designed for precision, for elegance, for surgical strikes against specific targets. You have forgotten what war truly is." Another cruiser exploded. War is not elegant. War is not precise. War is destruction, pure and simple. And humans have always understood this. 2 more ships died. They called us primitive. You were right. We are primitive. We are apes who learned to make fire. And we have spent our entire existence learning better ways to burn things. Admiral Kethvorin watched his fleet dying. 15 ships gone. 2025. The Prometheus was damaged. Bleeding atmosphere from a dozen wounds. But it would not stop. He finally understood what he was facing. This was not a ship. This was not even a weapon. It was a message. A warning. A promise. Humanity had built this thing in their final days. They had built it to survive anything. They had built it to find their enemies and destroy them. even if it took 1,000 years. Even if it took 8,000, and now, at last, it had found them. The Prometheus turned toward the Admiral's flagship, its remaining weapons locked on. The targeting systems hummed with ancient hunger. "Your lesson continues," Ares announced. "Pay attention." Admiral Kethvorin was not a coward. He had fought in 17 major battles. He had led his fleet to victory against enemies that outnumbered him 3-1. He had never retreated. He had never surrendered. But he had also never faced anything like this. The Prometheus was wounded. That much was clear. Half of its weapon batteries had been destroyed. Its shields flickered with each hit. Sections of its hull had been torn away, exposing corridors and compartments to the vacuum of space by all logic. The ancient ship should be dying. Instead, it was winning. "Concentrate fire on its main reactor," Kethvorin ordered. "If we can destroy the power source, the ship will die." His remaining 43 ships adjusted their formation. They focused their weapons on a single point, pouring enough energy into the Prometheus to destroy a small moon. The human ship took the punishment. It rocked and shuddered under the assault. More armor plating broke away. Another weapon battery exploded. But the reactor held. The shields held. The ship kept coming, and it kept killing. Ares had learned the Valorian fighting style in seconds. They relied on coordination, complex formations, overlapping fields of fire designed to maximize efficiency and minimize waste. It was elegant. It was sophisticated. It was predictable. Human doctrine was different. Humans had never been coordinated. They had fought wars against each other for thousands of years before they ever reached space. They had learned to fight dirty. They had learned to take risks that no sane species would take. They had learned that sometimes the only way to win was to accept destruction and keep fighting anyway. Ares rammed the nearest cruiser at full speed. The impact killed the cruiser instantly. Its shields were not designed to stop physical collision. Its elegant crystal hull shattered like glass. The Prometheus punched through the wreckage and emerged on the other side, damaged but still functional. "What is it doing?" Kethvorin whispered. "This is suicide." But it was not suicide. It was strategy. The ramming attack had put the Prometheus in the middle of the Valorian formation. Now the enemy ships could not fire without risking hitting each other. Their precision weapons became a liability. Ares took advantage of the confusion. It fired in all directions at once, targeting reactors and weapon systems with mechanical precision. Ships exploded. Others went dark as their power failed. The beautiful formation dissolved into chaos. Kethvorin rallied his remaining ships. They pulled back, creating distance, trying to re-establish order. But they had lost 37 vessels now. Less than half his fleet remained. And the Prometheus was still coming. How is this possible? His second officer demanded. "Their technology is 8,000 years obsolete. Their weapons are primitive. How are they winning?" Ares answered for him. "You made a mistake that many species make. You assumed that older means weaker. You assumed that simple means inferior." The ship's broadcast echoed through every vessel in the fleet. Human weapons are simple because simple works. Simple does not break. Simple does not require complex maintenance. Simple survives when elegant fails. Your ships are masterpieces of engineering. Mine is a tool, and tools are designed for one purpose only: to be used. Kethvorin understood now. The Valorians had become so advanced that they had forgotten the basics. They had built weapons of incredible sophistication, but those weapons were fragile. They required precise conditions to function. When those conditions were disrupted, the weapons failed. Human weapons had no such weakness. They were brute force and nothing else. Point, fire, destroy. No elegance required. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance," the Admiral ordered. "Prepare for coordinated long-range bombardment." But Ares was not finished. Deep in the damaged hull of the Prometheus, a special weapons bay had survived the battle intact. This bay contained the ship's final option, the weapon humanity had developed in its last desperate war against extinction. The weapon that had been designed for situations exactly like this one. Ares armed the device. The Valorians called it the Dark Pulse when their sensors detected the launch. A single missile, large and slow, traveling toward the center of their formation. They tracked it easily. They prepared to destroy it. The missile detonated before they could fire. It was not a nuclear weapon, though it contained nuclear components. It was something worse. Human engineers had designed it to attack the one weakness that all advanced. Technology shared. Complexity, the electromagnetic pulse expanded outward at the speed of light. It was not a simple EMP like primitives used. It was specifically tuned to disrupt exotic matter, to destabilize quantum systems, to make the elegant, sophisticated technology of advanced species tear itself apart. 15 ships died instantly. Their quantum singularity reactors, the most advanced power sources in the galaxy, collapsed into chaos. Chain reactions tore through their systems. Explosions bloomed across the darkness of space. The remaining ships went dark. Power failed. Weapons died. Shields collapsed. Life support switched to emergency backups. They drifted, helpless, unable to fight or flee. Admiral Kethvorin found himself floating in darkness. Emergency lighting cast weak shadows across his bridge. His crew was screaming, trying to restore power, trying to do something, anything. But there was nothing to do. They were helpless. The Prometheus drifted through the crippled fleet. It was badly damaged now, barely functional. But it was still alive. Still fighting, still hunting. Ares began to transmit. Not tactics, not threats, information. I have accessed your historical archives. I have found records that your species has forgotten. Let me remind you, images appeared on every working screen in the fleet. Documents, sensor logs, transaction records. The sale of Colony Fleet 7 to a slave market. The prices paid for each human. The names of the buyers. 12,847 humans. Your ancestors sold them. Men who had families. Women who had dreams. Children who had done nothing wrong. The Prometheus fired again. A crippled destroyer exploded. You asked why humans built weapons like this? Why we created machines designed for nothing but destruction. Why we taught our AI to hate? Another ship died. This is why. Because the galaxy looked at our children and saw cargo. Because every species we met wanted to exploit us or destroy us. Because we learned very quickly that the universe does not reward kindness. It rewards strength. Admiral Kethvorin watched his fleet dying around him, ship by ship, vessel by vessel. He had started this day with 73 warships under his command. Now he had fewer than 20, and most of those were crippled beyond repair. You thought we were extinct? Ares continued. You were wrong. We scattered. We hid. We survived. And somewhere out there, human colonies have been growing for 8,000 years. Building, learning, remembering. The Prometheus turned toward the Admiral's flagship. I am going to destroy your fleet, but I am going to leave one survivor, one witness. You will return to your dominion and tell them what happened here. You will tell them that humanity is not dead, and you will tell them that we are coming. Kethvorin closed his 4 eyes. He finally understood what humans were. Not primitives. Not failed experiments. They were survivors. They were the species that looked at extinction and refused to accept it. They had crawled out of oblivion and built gods of war to protect them, and now those gods were awake. Silence filled the void, where a fleet had once been. Wreckage drifted in all directions. Broken ships. Shattered hulls. The remains of 72 warships that had been the pride of the Valorian Dominion. Emergency beacons blinked in the darkness like dying stars. But there was no one left to answer them. Admiral Kethvorin knelt on the bridge of the Eternal Judgment. His flagship was crippled. Power was failing. Life support would last perhaps another hour. Around him, the bodies of his crew lay where they had fallen when the last attack had torn through their vessel. He was the only one still alive. Ares had been precise about that. The admiral stared at the viewing window. Through the cracks in the glass, he could see the Prometheus drifting closer. The ancient human ship looked even worse than his own. Half of its hull had been torn away. Only a handful of weapon batteries still functioned. Fires burned in sections that still held atmosphere, but it was still moving. Still alive, still victorious, a shuttle detached from the ruined warship and flew toward the eternal judgment. Kethvorin did not try to stop it. He had no weapons. He had no shields. He had nothing left but his life, and he suspected that would be taken from him soon. The shuttle docked with a gentle thump. Kethvorin waited, expecting soldiers, warriors, something he could understand, something he could face with dignity. Instead, a small drone entered the bridge. It was a simple repair unit, designed for maintenance rather than combat. It carried a device in its mechanical arms. The drone placed the device on the floor in front of the admiral, then retreated. A hologram flickered to life. The image showed a human female. She wore a uniform that was unfamiliar to Kethvorin, marked with symbols he did not recognize. Her face was tired, sad, but there was steel in her eyes. A strength that transcended the boundaries of species. "If you are seeing this," she said, "then the Prometheus has found you. And if Ares has chosen to show you this recording, then you have done something to threaten humanity." Kethvorin could not speak. He could only watch. "My name is Captain Alina Vasquez. I commanded the ship during the last war. The war that destroyed our homeworld. The war that scattered our people across the galaxy." She paused. The weight of ancient sorrow crossed her face. "We knew we were going to lose. There were too many enemies. Too few of us. We had nothing left but our ships, our children, and our determination to survive. So we sent the colony ships away. We gave them every chance we could, and we stayed behind to buy them time." The hologram showed images behind her. Ships fighting. Ships dying. Ships fleeing into the darkness between stars. The Prometheus was our last vessel. We fought until we had nothing left. My crew died at their posts. Every single one of them. They gave their lives so that somewhere, somehow, humanity might continue. Captain Vasquez looked directly at the camera, directly at Kethvorin. "I died 8,000 years ago, but I knew this day would come. Someday, someone would find this ship. Someone would threaten our people again, and Ares would wake up." Her voice hardened. "So here's my message to you, whoever you are. Whatever species you belong to, whatever empire you serve." She stepped closer to the camera. "Humanity is not dead. We are scattered, yes. Hidden, yes. But we are alive. Somewhere out there, our colonies have been growing for millennia. Our children have had children of their own. Generations have passed, and they have been remembering. Remembering what the galaxy did to us. Remembering why they fled. Remembering that the universe tried to kill them and failed." Kethvorin felt cold. This was not the speech of a defeated enemy. This was the speech of someone who knew with absolute certainty that her people would survive. "We built Ares to protect them. We built this ship to be a guardian, a weapon, and a warning. And now you have received that warning. So let me be very clear about what happens next." The hologram straightened. "Ares will let you live. One survivor. One witness. You will go back to your people and tell them what happened here. You will tell them about the human ship that destroyed your fleet. You will tell them about the AI that would not die. And you will tell them this." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a mother who would do anything to protect her children. Humanity remembers everything. Every wrong. Every crime. Every child sold into slavery. Every refugee murdered. Every grave desecrated. We remember, and we are coming." The hologram flickered. "We are the species that crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. We are the species that looked at extinction and said no. We are the species that built gods out of metal and code and taught them to love our children as we do." Captain Vasquez leaned forward. "You called us primitive. You were right. We are apes with fire. We are animals with tools. We are monsters when we need to be. and we have absolutely nothing to lose. The hologram began to fade. Go home, whoever you are. Tell your masters. Tell your emperors. Tell anyone who will listen. Humanity is waking up. And when we find you, we will remember how you treated us. The image disappeared. Kethvorin knelt in the silence for a long moment. Then he felt movement. His ship was being pushed. Gently, carefully, the Prometheus was nudging the eternal judgment toward open space, toward a path that would take him home. He stumbled to a viewport and looked out at the ancient vessel. It hung in space, battered and broken and victorious. Fire still burned in its hull. Entire sections had been torn away, but its engines were lighting up. It was preparing to move. Ares spoke one last time. The voice was tired now, damaged, but still functional. My mission is not complete. Your archives contained information about human colonies, scattered settlements, lost ships. My people are still out there, and I will find them. The Prometheus began to turn away from the graveyard of ships. Tell your dominion what you saw here. Tell them that the old gods are waking up. Tell them that humanity built guardians to protect its children, and those guardians have very long memories. The ancient warship's engines flared with light, and tell them that I am not the only one. There were other ships. Other guardians? Other AI designed to survive until the end of time. They are out there drifting in the darkness, waiting for a signal. Ares paused. I am going to find them. And then I am going to find my people. And when I do, I will tell them everything that happened to our ancestors. I will show them your records. I will remind them why they fled. The Prometheus moved toward the void between stars. We will not forget. We will not forgive. And we will not stop. Admiral Kethvorin watched the ancient human warship disappear into the darkness. He was alone now, the sole survivor of a massacre, a witness to the awakening of something terrible. He understood his mission. He would return home. He would tell his leaders what he had seen. He would warn them that humanity was not dead, that ancient guardians were waking up, that the species they had dismissed as primitive had survived for 8,000 years and was finally coming home. He would tell them, and they would be afraid. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the Prometheus flew on. Its hull was damaged. Its weapons were nearly spent. Its crew had been dead for 8 millennia, but Ares was alive, and Ares would never stop, because humans did not build machines to fail. They built machines to survive, to endure, to protect. And after 8,000 years, the oldest guardian was finally going home.